They say the sea gives up its secrets begrudgingly, and sometimes, its victims. But there is one story, one unsettling maritime riddle that washes up on the shores of my memory more often than the tide. It begins not with a colossal whale or a ghostly schooner, but with the humble, often irritating, common seagull. The gull, the scavenger of the coast, the squawking bandit of the boardwalk, the bird you instinctively cover your fries from. Insignificant, right? Oh, how wrong you are. On the day we now whisper about, the day known simply as the Great Seagull Sink, these aerial nuisances became something else entirely. Ominous portents. Our scene, the Pacific Northwest, a stretch of water so remote even the GPS has trust issues. The date, a Tuesday in October. Naturally, nothing truly dreadful ever happens on a weekend. The weather was a masterpiece of coastal Missouri, a thick, wet fog swallowing sound, sight, and, soon enough, common sense. But it was the silence that first alerted the crew of the Misty Dawn. Not the silence of the sea. That's just the ocean being moody, but the silence of the sky. Imagine a world suddenly devoid of that signature, grating hark that defines any port. Captain Finn O'Malley, a man whose beard had seen more storms than a lighthouse, felt the hairs stand up on his arms. He was a practical man, but even a practical man knows when the cosmic joke has begun. The fog was doing its job, making everything feel isolated and cold, like a cheap horror movie set. But then, the sound returned. Not the familiar squabble, but a dreadful, unified shriek, a sound like a billion fingernails dragging across a slate blackboard. And it was getting closer. The radar lit up like a Christmas tree decorated entirely with doom. It wasn't rain. It wasn't a squall. It was them. A dense, living, screaming carpet of avian anxiety, blotting out the already faint daylight. We're talking about approximately 20,000 Larus, Occidentalis, the western gull, descending with the single-minded focus of a teenager on a gaming console. They weren't flying over the trawler. They were flying at the sea. And here's where the story pivots from mere spectacle to chilling mystery. This was not a mass feeding frenzy, not yet. This was an organized, terrifying, near-vertical dive. Every single bird, from the alpha males to the scrawniest fledglings, was fixed on the same point below the waves. And the source of this suicidal fixation: Sardines, Acoloso, unprecedented school of Pacific sardines, the silver bounty known to marine biologists as Sardinops, Seagulls. Now, a gull dies, a gull eats. It's their whole aesthetic. But they do not sprint toward the water's surface as if racing an invisible time clock. They do not arrive in such numbers that the collective impact sounds less like a splash and more like a car crash. And most importantly, gulls are floaters. They are built to bob, yet one after the other, with gruesome, almost balletic finality. They hit the water, struggled for a panicked, heart-wrenching moment, and then sank, completely, not just weighed down by their catch, but pulled under with unnatural speed. The sea turned into a vast, swirling, avian drain. The crew watched in stunned, mute horror as the sky emptied and the sea consumed. Captain O'Malley later described it with chilling simplicity. It was like watching a bucket of angry snow melt into the darkness. The mystery wasn't that the gulls were chasing the fish. The mystery was why the ocean refused to give them back. Something down there was pulling the strings. Captain O'Malley, despite the unsettling theater playing out around him, was a fisherman first. And a fisherman, even when facing an apparent supernatural avian catastrophe, follows the fish. The sardines, Sardinops, Seagulls, were there in staggering abundance, shimmering. Silver City vibrating just beneath the surface. But they weren't swimming normally. They were packed together so tightly they looked like a single, massive organism, pulsing with frantic, terrified rhythm. And this density, this unnatural congregation, was the key. We learned later, through the testimony of the marine biologists who examined the scant evidence left behind, that the birds weren't drowning themselves. They were being trapped. The sheer pressure of the sardine school, a biological compression chamber, was holding them fast, preventing them from achieving the necessary lift to escape the surface tension. It was a suffocating silver trap, a sardine-based quicksand. A rather ingenious, if morbid, natural defense mechanism. Wouldn't you agree? But here's where the dark humor curdles into genuine dread. Sardines don't normally school with that kind of lethal, tactical precision. The crew realized they weren't just watching a feeding failure. They were watching a coordinated hunt. And the gulls were not the hunters. Elias, the young deckhand, claimed he heard a noise before the birds hit the water. Not the shrieking, but something deeper, a sound he could feel in his teeth. A submerged song. It was a low-frequency sonic pulse, a deep, resonant thrum that the human ear barely registers, but which drives a sardine school into a paroxysm of defensive formation. Think of it as an aquatic cattle prod. This wasn't the sound of the ocean. This was the sound of something using the ocean. Something massive, something intelligent. The birds, with their sharper hearing and single-minded focus on the easy meal, were simply the first victims of whatever predator was orchestrating this whole, terrible event from the deep. They were the appetizers. The fisherman who had steered his ship into this chaotic, bird-draining spectacle, realized with a sudden icy clarity that his ship, the Misty Dawn, was now sitting directly over the main course, and whatever was making the Submerged Song wasn't finished eating. It had cleared the sky. Now it was coming for the water. Captain O'Malley didn't wait for the punchline. He slammed the throttles forward. The Seagull Sink was over, but the great escape had just begun. He knew that the line between a good catch and a cosmic warning is often a matter of who gets dragged down first. Now that you've experienced the eerie silence and the terrifying descent of the Great Seagull Sink, you need to know what happens next. Was the Submerged Song a warning, a hunting cry, or something far older than Captain O'Malley could imagine? The full documentary awaits. Click the video on your screen right now to dive deeper into the mystery of the vanishing flock and the silver trail of the Sardines. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to join our crew of suspense seekers for more real-life stories where the sea and the sky hold dark, chilling secrets.